Hi, I'm Dr. Craig Jalquist. This is our 10th video on Terrapsychological Inquiry, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about the use of research in dreams, and I'll do it in the context of our kind of research, our kind of qualitative research into our deep connections with the world around us, an eco-psychological research method. But I think these techniques can be used with other kinds of research too, particularly qualitative research that looks deeply at our experience of how we interact with the things that we study. So a bit about dreams and how they work. Now, I should say right up front that one of the things that's difficult to understand about dreams is what they mean in terms of them giving us a symbolic message rather than a literal one. The chief source of misunderstanding about dreams is that we take them literally when we try to interpret them at all. They usually mean something more metaphoric, more thematic, more symbolic, and they're not reducible to either the firing neurons in the head or what we had for dinner before we went to sleep. So as an example, some years ago when I did psychotherapy, I was working with somebody who had a dream of basically being turned into a mannequin. She was window shopping and she saw a number of mannequins wearing business suits of the kind that she wore to work. She hated her job, and it felt to her like it was, as she said after she told me about the dream, like the job was turning her into a plastic person. She felt fake all the time. She felt like she was always on stage. It just wasn't working out for her. So she ended up getting a different job that she was happier with. But the dream actually gave her a very accurate picture of what was happening to her. But the picture was expressed in a symbol. So to reduce it to some sort of literal meaning wouldn't have worked. Whereas the picture that the dream conveyed actually was a good snapshot psychologically of what was happening to her in that position. So she changed it. So that's one example of how dreams bring back to us at night what we missed during the day. Carl Jung thought that dreams had a compensatory function, and what he meant by that is when we don't see things that are important to our psychological health, dreams tend to bring those back to us at night in symbolic form. So they serve the purpose of wholeness. One of the ways they do this is that dreams have this kind of magical ability that you see in other kinds of human creativity that involves taking something psychological, some experience that we have, and turning it into a dream character. And so this is called personification. And this is another reason that if we take a dream too literally, we won't get what it's trying to tell us. So for instance, perhaps you have anger to deal with that you haven't dealt with. Maybe there's a situation in life that's making you more angry than you realize. And so you may go to sleep and dream of a volcano blowing its top. And so a way to get at the personification is to wake up and ask yourself, where's the volcano in me? Where are all these different things in me? And there are certain sets of symbols that a lot of people dream that it's not correct to say that they all have the same meaning, because you can't get to the meaning of a symbol without the dreamer's association. So you would say, what does the volcano bring to mind for you? And the person might say exploding, overheating, and then you can get at the meaning that way by decoding through your own associations. But even so, there's a lot of times where symbols do have a similar function across people's dreams. So for instance, it's relatively common, I think, in the industrial West to have a dream about a car if you're a car owner. And the car often symbolizes either your body or just your path through life, the way you drive yourself through life. But again, you can't tell for sure unless you ask somebody what they associate to that dream car. So there's lots of different ways to work with dreams and lots of good books out there. Beware of the ones that give you fixed meanings for the symbols for the reason I just explained. And dreams are very useful for research, for qualitative research in particular, even though on the quantitative side of the house, there's a number of scientific discoveries that actually owe themselves to dreams that scientists have. The chemist who came up with a formula for the benzene ring, had a dream about it the night before his discovery. In a way, the unconscious was working overtime when he was asleep, and dreams do that. They bridge the conscious and unconscious minds. So they're holistic in that sense too. They involve all of us in the process that's creative every night. So dreams and research go well together, particularly for Terrapsychological Inquiry. And I wanted to give you a few examples of how that works. Excuse me. So this one applies to other kinds of research work, not just parapsychological work, but we see it too. So researchers, and I'm thinking in this case of graduate students, but it could be other kinds of people doing deep inquiry. Well, oftentimes when they're working on a long-term project, women in particular will dream that they are pregnant and that the work is growing inside them. In the dream, it's a baby. It's not usually a document or anything like that, or a report, or, you know. And they might dream of, at the end of the process, when they finally publish something or give a presentation or finish in some other way, then they might dream that they hold a child in their arms. This is actually fairly common, and it's a dream way of acknowledging the intimacy of the work and how much it's involved in the psyche and the body and everything else. So that's a fairly common set of dreams. On the ecological side of things, dreams often can tell us what is going on with a particular site that we might be investigating. So in my case, this is where it all started for me too, by the way, back in the year 2000. I had a series of dreams about San Diego, which is where I was living at the time and where I was born. And they were not reducible to this image has to do with my childhood, or this has have to do with some trauma I have, or whatever. They were telling me real things about the city, as though the city itself were some kind of a personality. And after a while, there was a particular figure, a feminine figure, who would show up in my dreams, and I just recognized that she was San Diego, mainly because she actually told me that she was in the very first of this dream series. I'm San Diego, and she said it like, get it, you know. So I finally did. So she would say, you know, if you go here, you'll see this, and if you go over there, that's what's going on with me. And then I'd get in my car and I'd drive over, and sure enough. So I've learned since then that very often places in particular will, through processes we don't pretend to understand, some sort of interactive field that we share with everything, maybe, in the analytic sense, the psychoanalytic sense of a field, through whatever it is that connects us. Oftentimes places will show up in a dream and speak to our sensitivity, because we are sensitive to what our surroundings, and although it's a knack that a lot of us have lost at the conscious level, we still remain tuned in, even to the point of having symptoms sometimes. So before I went to San Luis Obispo County for the very first time in my life some years ago during my graduate research, I had a dream in which the word polluted spread itself across an image that I knew represented San Luis Obispo County. And at that time, this was some years ago, when I finally arrived, pollution was pretty much all I ran into. Everything was toxic this and polluted that, and don't go in the creek. And we had an oil spill under Abla Beach for 90 years, and there was a sewer break in the city itself, and it was just over and over and over. Really, it was really taking a beating, that place, at the time that I visited. I hope it's different now, but the dream was quite accurate. I don't recall reading any news. I didn't do any homework on the place before I went to visit it. I wanted to collect fresh impressions. I didn't talk to anybody about it, and yet the dream was quite accurate. Another example, too, of dreams helping the research is sometimes when you're on the wrong track, the dreams, if you ask for one, can provide a corrective. So if you know how to read dreams. So case in point, Orange County. When I was first looking into that place, I was, after visiting a few times, I had been there before in childhood and throughout my upbringing, and so that was a place that I actually had visited a bunch of times. So I was looking into the history of it, the geology, the geography, and I was trying to get a sense of what was going on there at a deep level. what's the presence of this place? What's the soul of this place really like? So I formed some ideas about it, and then I felt as though there's something missing here. So I had been doing some writing, and then I went to bed one night and I used a technique that I learned in my psychological studies. It's called incubating a dream, and what it means is very simple, actually. You just get into a space where you're in bed and you're kind of sleepy, and you ask whatever you think of as your own unconscious for a dream about something that you're concerned about. So that night I asked my unconscious, am I getting this place? Am I right about what's happening here? I had a dream that a feminine figure who reminded me of somebody who lived in Orange County. So it was a personification, I realized afterwards, of Orange County. Visited me in the dream, and she didn't look happy, and she had a thick stack of papers in her hand, and she handed them to me and walked away. And I started looking through them, and I realized it was what I had been working on. It was what I had written. And when I looked at the sheaf of paper she gave me, it was all marked up in red. Wrong, 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 wrong. So I woke up and I immediately knew I have to start over. There's a bias in the way here. There's something I'm not getting about this place. So I looked a little deeper, and sure enough, I came across other things that other researchers have since confirmed is actually going on there in terms of the presence of the place and the themes that recur. So that's an example of how a dream can actually provide a corrective to a mistake that you're making and give you a sense of whether you're on the right track or not. I've had other dreams that I incubate in terms of where am I going? Am I anywhere near what's really happening here? And the dreams say, you got it. You're it. That's it, you know. So dreams can also give us really, I think, poignant and beautiful hints of our sense of identity with the natural world and how much a part of it we are. So one researcher, Mike, during his doctoral work, he was using Terrapsychological Inquiry to explore a river. He wanted to know about the history of the river and the psychology of people living near it, and how the health of the river reflected the health of the people. So at one point when he started his inquiry, he had this beautiful dream that involved him swimming in the river. So moving through all of that research, collecting impressions, memories. He grew up near there. And in the river, he came across a stone that was shaped like a heart. Beautiful image. So moving to read about. In another case, another researcher, Sarah, when she started investigating a particular place, I think, if I remember correctly, this was quite a few years ago, but I think this came at the end of her research. In the dream, she was walking through a field of grass, and she looked down into it, and the soil at one point was exposed, some fresh soil. And she looked down and she saw that it was shaped in the shape of her face looking back at her. So beautiful dreams of our deep identity with the processes that we study. Also, dreams can sometimes tell us as researchers when it's time to take a break. So in my case, like a lot of us, I tend to work hard and I tend to get pulled into the research, and I just want to focus on it and get a little obsessive about it. And then dolphins show up in my dreams, and that usually is a hint to me that it's time to take a break and play. And for other people, it's another image. So if you're interested in more examples of how this works, how dreams inform research and deep inquiry, a couple of books for you. One of them was published in 2009. The editors were Linda Bizzell and me, and it's the book Ecotherapy, Healing with Nature and Mind. Originally published by Sierra Club Books and now available at Counterpoint Press. And then the second book was published a year later. I edited an anthology of many different voices into a book called Rebirths, and births is spelled with like earth, Rebearths, Conversations with the World Ensouled. And that was through World Soul Books. So one other note, sometimes dreams can be so amazing and so deep and rich that they actually say something about the state of the world, the state of the earth. And so some years ago, I had a dream that during a time of ecological decline rapidly gaining force, that the goddess Gaia was weeping. That dream is still with me. And then on the in a more hopeful direction, as a class exercise, I often invite students to incubate an earth dream. And I tell them, so when you go to sleep tonight, or for a couple of nights, just get into a state of sleepy reverie and then visualize Earth and pretend that you're actually talking to Earth as a personified character and ask Earth for a dream. And so one student came in after doing that exercise and had a remarkable dream. He had been out in the savannah, and he had seen tigers and other animals out there. And so in his dream, there was this huge feminine figure who was very tiger-like. And even in the dream, he immediately thought, this is the soul of the world. That was his dream association, and also his association upon awakening. And, this huge, fierce, tigerish figure. And there was a mark on her face, the color of a gold star. And so she was making a gesture toward the star on her face. And you know how in dreams oftentimes, whether a person or some being or whoever it is communicating with you, and it works almost like telepathy, like thought transference. You just know what they're thinking mentally, And so he had one of those dream moments. And he said, I felt that the mark on her face was irritating to her. And so we went into what that mark was. What's your associations to the mark, and what does it look like, and can you just sketch it? And so it was a figure of a human being with arms and legs stretched out, and it was the reminded him of the Vitruvian Man figure. So for him, it was an image of humanity, and it was gold and star shaped. And so in the dream, what he got from this tigerish figure, the soul of the world, was that mark on the surface of her skin was irritating her, but that she had decided that she wasn't going to just scratch it off and be done with it. So we all sighed deeply to hear that part of the dream. Just an amazing dream. And we're all still here, so that's good. So, pleasant dreaming, or actually, let me put it this way, deep dreaming. That's the kind of dreaming that can really inform changes in how you see yourself and your relationship to the world.